Are you looking to become a Tier 1 operator in the gaming world? Elevate your games with Black Site Studio Terrain.
Turn 5, and I'm starting to feel a little bit of turn pressure here, a little bit of a time pressure. So, despite my best efforts over here in the west, you'll see that I have still not cracked that Hex 2420 on the peak of that Vysoka Ridge, or Vysoka Hill. I've now had to bring in more armor, and I'm still not really able to crack it. Meanwhile, he's continuing to launch close assaults against my light armor out of that objective hex, and I'm still pretty badly pinned down there. In the town of Vysoka itself, down in the south, there's a little bit of a sideshow battle, which I have finally started to win. You'll notice that I have a close assault there in the south center of the screen. Unfortunately for me, that's not an objective hex, so that battle almost doesn't matter for victory conditions-wise. I don't want to get too hung up down there. But, again, I don't want to leave too many Polish units in my rear either. So, again, that town's being cleaned out, and we'll see how that develops going forward. The little bit of a tank duel and artillery duel is still taking place at Naprava, I'm sorry to say. One little bit of a bright spot for me is in the southeast, where, again, at the town of Rabka, I have finally caught in some decent artillery barrages, along with some close assaults by German reconnaissance infantry and engineers. Oh, no, I'm sorry, there's no engineers down there. German infantry, and I have finally really cleaned out the remaining mortars and anti-aircraft batteries that were in that town and were posing a threat to my tanks, and armored cars, and most importantly, the objective hexes that they are currently occupied. The objective hex that they currently occupy there on the southeast corner of your screen. So there's only one more National Defense platoon left down there. I'm not too worried about it. That one guy by himself, that one platoon by himself, they're not going to be able to shift those tanks. At the end of turn 5, I'm finally able to sort of call that one there in the southeast. Fortunately for me, I also have battles in the northeast, center, and western center of the battle already underway for 3 more objective hexes. That is the Naprava hex, the Eastern Bridge hex, and again, the Wysoka Bridge hex and Hex 2420 underway. So I have one objective hex down there in the south. Already taken, it's now secured. I've got that one in the bank, no problem. I have to take 4. There are battles in progress. You can see very clearly here, 1, 2, 3. There are 3 simultaneous sort of Flames of War mega games going on at once for those 3 other battles. I'm probably going to win them. The problem is I have to win all 3. Because if I win all 3, that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4 objective hexes, and that's game. That is the minimum victory conditions for the Germans in this game. If Piotr is able to hold out for 3 more turns on at least one of those, he does win, because he'll still control 4 objective hexes. This is just a little bit of a crisper, more of a zoom in on this battle here. The first 2 battles that are 4 objective hexes in the western part of the screen and the center part of the screen. So again, Hex 2420 is still embattled. I'm pretty sure I'm going to clean them out pretty good on turn 6. I'm not too worried about it. Because now I've got 2 platoons of Mark 4s up there, and those Mark 4s are with the old 7.5 centimeter assault howitzers are pretty good, especially at point-blank range at cleaning out enemy infantry. I'm not too worried about that. I've got more soft weapons up there, Mark 1s with machine guns, armored cars. I've even got a little bicycle platoon up there of all things. I'm not too worried about it. I have a pretty serious indirect artillery mission coming in at Naprava that I'm pretty sure is going to shift that last platoon of 12th Rifle Regiment out of Naprava there in Hex 1919. So I'm not too worried about that. So again, this is the, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, this is the Battle of Ravka. This is an extreme zoom in on that way southeast corner of the table. This is where I have one platoon of German armored cars and a platoon of German tanks, light tanks, Mark IIs, sitting in the objective hex. Though that's the actual hex that matters for game purposes. Artillery missions and a 2-platoon infantry close assault has finally cleaned out those 2 targets there in the southwestern part of the town. That was a battery of 81mm Polish mortars and also 50 caliber machine guns, 12.7mm machine guns. I'm pretty sure I've got this battle wrapped up. He's only got 1 rifle platoon left down here. He's got nothing that can reinforce. He's got no off-board assets that can reach him, no indirect fire artillery, no airstrikes. I'm pretty sure I finally got this one in the bag. The question is, did it take me too long? And here is that eastern ridge. This is the battle that I'm a little worried about. So, they're in hex 1016. That's underneath the Polish 76.2mm gun. That really should say 75mm. That's 7H24. That's the hex. You can barely see the target icon underneath there. That's the hex that matters. I have to take that hex before the end of the game. As I drew up there with my very light, very fast German reconnaissance units, he did cat-attack me with 2 platoons of National Guards and 1 platoon of regular Polish rifles. He did destroy 1 platoon of German armor. That's that red counter that you see burning there in the south of the objective hex. He pinned down 2 more. I do now have the objective hex spotted, but I did so at the end of turn 5. That means at the beginning of turn 6, I can call in the fire mission, and that means at the beginning of turn 7, that artillery mission is finally going to land. That's if all these other German units don't get pinned down or destroyed, which I am not sure is going to happen. That's a surprisingly tough position for the Poles up there. So here we are at the end of turn 6, the wide-angle view, so to speak. At least for the moment, I'm going more or less according to schedule. Okay, so first we'll zoom in on the western part of the battlefield. And you see there in the lower right-hand part of your screen there, you'll see hex 2420. It's now got a big explosion marker on it, obviously, and 2 platoons of German tanks. They're only Mark 1s, but they are still German tanks. There were 2 platoons of Polish infantry in there, actually 1 of infantry and 1 of engineers. So those 2 platoons of German tanks was able to destroy it last turn, and now they've used this turn to kind of move south, and they're now staring right down the muzzles of those Polish artillery batteries that we see there at the in hex 2818. That's in the extreme southern hex of Jordanów. That is the bridge that goes over the Skava River and leads into the town of Jordanów. There is a Polish objective hex further up on Jordanów. You can't quite see it. I'm not really anticipating taking it, but I do want to silence those Polish guns. Those Polish guns have just wiped out. You'll see that explosion marker there in the south. They've just wiped out an entire platoon of German pioneers. Not too happy about that. But in so doing, they did give away their position. But again, I have to wait till next turn. And I'm running out of turns. So after that hex was destroyed by German artillery fire, I was able to move in those 2 platoons of Mark 1s in there. The lighter German armor and armored cars, light tanks, and even that little half track there in the southeast part of your screen. They're starting to recover. They haven't completely recovered, but I think I've got hex 2420 in the bag. I don't think he's going to be able to take it back with too much. And that's going to give me 2 objective hexes. It's now the end of turn 6. Again, I've only taken 2 objective hexes. I've got 2 turns left, and I have to take 2 objective hexes. Moving a little bit further over here to the east, again, we'll see where that damn hex 1919 in Naprava is still holding out. Despite my artillery barrages, despite my tanks. And again, he's still pinning down German tanks with his 7 TP upgrades. That 1 German tank platoon is still burning. That battle is more or less stalled in place at the moment. I wasn't really expecting that. And I'm not doing terribly well there in the center. Heading over to the eastern part of the table, you'll see where he did launch. Now he's got 5 platoons of Polish infantry. He's got 2 of rifles and 3 platoons of National Guard troops. Again, the 1 I-2 are the National Guard troops. The 2 I-2s are the regular Polish rifles from the regular army. He attacked some of my tanks. Oh, I should say, yeah, I think there were some actual tanks in there. He attacked some tanks and some German armored cars there on 3 sides in a massive close assault. He has managed to destroy all 3 platoons. So pretty much a company of German armor, albeit light armor, but still 3 platoons. 15 German armored vehicles are now on fire. And I've probably lost a good, 40 or 50 KIAs there in that hex. That's a hell of a battle there, and the Poles are definitely putting up a very serious fight here in the eastern part of the table. Alright, here we are at the end of turn 7. Things are starting to break loose for the Germans, I'm happy to say. Again, we are now at the end of the second to last turn of the game. So as of the time this screenshot was taken, I had exactly 1 turn left. Okay. So, first of all, my German Mark IVs and even a platoon of Mark Is have managed to really kick the door down in the southern hex of Jordanów. We now own the bridge crossings over the Skava River into the southern suburbs of Jordanów itself by destroying those 2 batteries of Polish artillery. It was a battery of 100mm field guns and a battery of 75s in there. They did pose a threat to a good piece of the western side of the board. I'm not going for that objective hex. I'm never going to reach it in time. But so I don't want to invest too much combat power over here on the western flank, but I did want to silence those guns. So that happened over there in the west. We already talked about how I took the top of Wysoka Ridge. My 2 platoons of German tanks are still sitting there. I've got the bulk of 1 Schutzen battalion now moved far enough north to where I have that pinned down platoon of engineers completely invested. He's not getting out of there. And right now he's pinned down in those woods, so I'm just going to pretty much mop that up. The good news for the Germans is that an artillery mission has finally managed to kind of pull its head out of its ass a little bit and land a decent fire mission smack dab on Naprava. I was very happy about that. Smashed open Naprava pretty good. And once that artillery mission managed to land in there, I was able to quickly move in with 2 platoons of tanks and take that objective hex. Boom, I now have 3 objective hexes. Robka to the southeast, I've got the top of that Wysoka Ridge, and I now have Naprava. I now own 3 of the required 4 objective hexes. Which means one way or another, it's going to come down to that eastern ridge. So again, this is a zoom in on what the things are looking like over there in the west. You'll see where my Mark IVs and even a little platoon of Mark Is has cleaned artillery out of that southern hex of Jordanów. You'll see where I honed the top of Wysoka Ridge and where I was finally able to clear that Polish infantry platoon out of Naprava, walk in there, or I should say roll in there, and take that hex. So now, again, I own 3 out of 4 required objective hexes. Here's the part of the battle that gets dicey. Okay, so once Naprava fell, and I got those 2 platoons of tanks into that town, Piotr quickly realized that the center of gravity on the table had changed. He was not going to retake that hex. That just wasn't going to happen. So for the last turn and a half of the game, so to speak, the Polish turn on turn 7, and then the German and Polish turns on turn 8, the last turn of the game. The last turn and a half of the game is all about this hex over here to the east. This is where you see 3 platoons. Oh, sorry. 1 platoon of Polish rifles, 1 platoon of Polish National Guards, and 1 platoon of Polish bicycle troops. Here in that center hex. Hex 1016 is the one that matters. He is desperately close to holding that hex. And here's why. So you see 3 platoons of German tanks already burning to the south. I've lost them. My artillery mission on turn 7 landed over there on Naprava. So on turn 8, or I should say on turn 7, I have to call in artillery mission on hex 1016 over here to the east. And I have to do it with a unit that is not pinned down. So I tried to move my tanks, or my light tanks and my armored cars, I tried to move them north on the other side of the ridge where he couldn't get at me with too much more firepower, and where I could then successfully call in the fire mission. He nevertheless was able to cat-attack me with his rifles, National Guard, and even bicycle troops against, and that sounds absurd, but dude, a guy on a bicycle can throw a Molotov cocktail. These German troops are right next to all these Polish units. And he was able to not destroy anybody, but pin down those 3 platoons of very light German armor. those KFZ-13s are armored cars that you really only see in Poland. I think they had a few of them left in France. They're basically Kubelwagens with some steel plating bolts to the side of them. They are super light armored cars. I don't even think they were enclosed. You see where they have a defense factor of 2. They're just an absolute joke. SDKFZ 222 is almost as bad. I do have one platoon of Mark II tanks up there. That's in the hex that's all dispersed. They're all pinned down. A pinned down unit cannot call in a fire mission. So the only reason I have any kind of artillery coming in on this hex on the last turn of the game is that one single solitary platoon over there to the northwest, that one platoon of Panzerkampfwagen 2s that is still not dispersed. And he's got problems coming in from the southwest. He's about to be overrun by 3 full platoons of Polish tanks that are going to absolutely stomp those Mark IIs into the ground. This thing is not over. If I lose that platoon of Mark IIs that's not dispersed, or if they get dispersed, in other words, I have no good ordered units to call in that artillery mission, the artillery mission's now called in. It's whether or not, if every unit that had called in that fire mission is now either killed or dispersed, that fire mission is probably going to drift or scatter. Doesn't matter, because if everything up there is either killed or dispersed, and even if the artillery mission does land properly, what's going to wind up happening is I have no units that, because everyone's either dead or dispersed, I can't move anybody into that objective X on the last turn of the game. The Polish win. So this thing is razor edge close. And here we are on turn 8. This is the very end of the game, and here's where things finally wrap up. So again, the wide angle view, this is what the battlefield pretty much looks like at the end of the turn. Let's take a look at what's going on in our more detailed comparisons. So first thing that happened over there in the west, I'm pretty much shutting things down over there in the west. The only thing that really happened for me on the western part of the table on turn 8 was I finally cleaned out the rest of those Polish engineers in the woods surrounded up there on the north peak of Wysoka Ridge. But here's where the game was decided one way or the other. So the German turn comes up. I had a whole bunch of tanks sitting in Naprawa village. They took Naprawa village last turn. Now it's come to my turn on turn 8, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do? I have artillery coming in, but I have to make sure that it lands properly. So the artillery comes in, and it lands properly, because I had that one platoon of Mark IIs in hex 1115. The artillery mission landed properly. It scored the right dice, and it blew those Polish infantry units clean out of that hex. Fine. Now it comes to the German movement phase. There were 3 platoons of 7 TPs, Polish 7 TPs. They're in hex 1216. Okay, if I just moved in with those Mark IIs that I had in hex 1115, Piotr would use what's called opportunity fire, and he would kill my Mark IIs as they tried to move and occupy the objective hex. He would not be able to retake the objective hex, but I wouldn't have it. And my victory requirements are I have to take 4 objective hexes by the end of the game. If those Mark IIs simply ran, that one platoon of Mark IIs simply bolted from 1115 southeast into the objective hex where you see them sitting now, that would have cost me the game. Because Piotr was in position, he would have easily fired with his 3 platoons of 7 TP upgrades and blown those Mark IIs into the middle of next week somewhere. And he would technically still own that hex, or at least be the last to control it, therefore I would not get that chance. I might have been able to sneak in there with some of those armored cars to the very north, but again, those guys were pinned. And in order for them to move, they have to be in good order. 2 of those platoons are showing in good order now. You'll notice the counters are upright instead of cocked over. That's because they rallied, but that's their turn. And once they rally, they can't move. They spent their turn rallying, becoming in good order. So it was really all up to those Mark IIs. So, long story short, how did those Mark IIs get away with it? They got away with it because after that artillery mission splashed and cleaned off that ridge, before the Mark IIs made their run to the southeast, I came in with 4 more platoons of tanks out of Naprawa I bolted straight up behind Piotr, and I overran his position with platoons of Mark IIIs and one platoon of Mark IIs. That's where you clearly see the big overrun arrow there. Okay, now Piotr saw this coming, and now he's in a dilemma. He gets to shoot his tanks during my movement phase, but each platoon can obviously only fire once. So does he fire at the Mark IIs, which he knows is going to go in there and try and take the victory hex, or is he going to try and defend his own position by destroying these these Mark IIIs coming up from behind him out of the west? He tried to split the difference. He fired 2 of those 7TP platoons against my Mark IIIs. You see where he pins down 2 platoons of Mark IIIs. He was hoping to reserve 1 platoon of 7TPs to fire east at my Mark IIs as they go for the objective hex. It didn't really work out for him. He did pin down those 2 platoons of Mark IIIs. Once those Mark IIIs are pinned down, they cannot execute the rest of the overrun attack. However, I had 1 platoon of Mark IIs and that one last platoon of Mark IIIs there in the south, still in good order. They were able to execute the overrun, and they destroyed all 3 7TP tank platoons in hex 1216. And that pretty much decided the game. Once I was able to do that, then I could continue my movement phase. That 1 platoon of Panzerkampfwagen 2s out of hex 1115 moves 2 hexes southeast, occupies the objective hex. He's got nothing that can possibly shift those Mark IIs out of that objective hex. By the skin of my teeth, and by really taking full advantage of the way the turn sequence is laid out, only by the skin of my teeth was I able to take that objective hex with a single platoon of light German tanks. That was a German win, fair and square, but man, guys, this one was close. So again, this is a full zoom out of the map. We're looking at the complete, the complete battle area for our Battle of Jordanów. Really, the second day of the Battle of Jordanów. You'll see where the Germans have taken 4 objective hexes, and the Poles still control 3. This is at the end of turn 8, and this is how the game winds up. So this does go down as a German victory. As you can see by quite a few smoke columns on the table, the Germans did have to fight quite a bit for it. So yeah, this was not a cheap victory. And as far as time crunch goes, again, the very end of the very last turn. And only by using absolutely every single unit that I had in the area, and by making multiple die rolls, spotting check, followed by an artillery mission, followed by an overrun attack, followed by resistance against overruns, followed by. None of the rolls were really tough, but if I had failed one of them, that pretty much would have been it. And things did work out for me, although admittedly only just. That was definitely not an easy one. It was definitely not an overrun. It was definitely not an easy game. So yeah, Piotr put up a really good defense, and he did come really, really close to actually pulling off another Polish upset here in our 1939 campaign.